Are you charging the right prices for your services? How often should you change your pricing? How do you set your prices for your services in the first place? Pricing has always been a difficult subject in our industry. It's often based on this, well, this is what I've always charged, or I'm worth this price, or this is what she's charging for her services, so I should charge the same. Or here's what the salon down the street is charging, so I guess this is what I should charge. It's time to rethink our pricing strategy and look at it from the consumer perspective. In today's episode, we explore new ideas and thoughts around pricing and how it can have a transformative impact on your business. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Salon Scoop, a podcast by Salon S.O.S. I'm your host, Scott Moon, the founder of Salon S.O.S., and I'm obsessed with helping salon professionals live their best life. In this show, we shop talk all things salon to bring you real-life stories, debates, entertainment, and inspiration to help you find happiness and success in this beautiful industry. If you work in the salon industry in any capacity, this podcast is open to you. So set down your scissors or rinse out that toner and let's get into it. Hey everybody, we've got a power episode for you today. I am so excited, not just by the important topic of pricing that we're about to delve into, but also about our incredible guest that is joining us today on the Salon Scoop podcast. Today, we're going to get the scoop on pricing and how to rethink pricing in different ways that can positively impact your business. And our guest today is one of the most energetic and passionate people that I personally know in the industry, the one and only Luke Huffstetter, owner of Annastasia Salons in Portland, Oregon. Luke, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today, buddy.
Hey, I'm really excited to be with you, Scott.
It's been so long since we've chatted, so I'm going to learn a lot here today. But I want to make sure that we get a lot of value for our listeners in terms of what you've been doing, in terms of expansion with your salon companies, and how you've really been attacking and incorporating pricing. So, but for those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting you or hearing you speak in various education classes, summit, business trainings, could you give our listeners maybe just a quick overview of your journey in the industry, how you got into it, and sort of take us through until today, so we know who you are and what you're currently doing.
Okay, I am fourth generation in the industry. My great grandmother was a hairdresser during the Great Depression. She taught my grandfather how to do hair. He became a traveling salesman and worked for a distributor. And him and my grandmother bought that distributorship, which then they sold to my dad. And my dad met my mom at a hair show because she is a retired hairdresser. And my dad made all of my older siblings, I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and they're older, and they all had to work for the family business. I was young, so I didn't have to. And as I graduated high school, my dad sold the distributorship to John Maley, which then John sold to Salon Centric, right? So I still there's still stores that my dad owned, right? That I would go into and terrorize all of his employees as a kid, right? There's still those stores in Oregon. And my dad, as I graduated college, he asked me to get the family back into business. My older siblings were all too established to, take the risk. And it turns out it was a risk. So we bought a salon together with my older brother. And that was in 2006. I just celebrated my 18th anniversary last week. Holy smokes.
Nice.
See, I got the grays to prove it. And we were off to the races. I mean, no, we weren't. The first year was a miserable mess. We lost all the money. I mean, I was a 23-year-old kid. So, what I really didn't know anything. I had a lot of family history, but I
Yeah.
hadn't done the experience myself. And so we found a year into it, I was like crying, Dad, I'm a slumlord. We bought a booth rental salon. I'm a slumlord and they hate me and I don't know what I'm doing. And my older brother Keith introduced me to the summit. I went to the summit in 2007. And that was a huge change for us because it gave me a plan and a strategy to support the team. We brought in commissioned stylists and we just kept growing and growing and growing. And we upgraded salons. That salon had some extra space. So a few years later, we expanded. We went from 12 chairs to 20 chairs, and we just kept growing and growing and growing using those summit systems. And I loved it and was obsessed with it so much that I had the opportunity to become a summit coach. And then I had a 10-year career with Summit where I got to coach other salons. I got to teach in front of the room, which was just like a dream come true. And all the while, the salon was just trucking along and growing. And we added a second location, which was a wild ride, and it went
What
well.
year? What year
So,
was that when you opened the second location?
yeah, we opened a second location in 2021, so right
Okay.
after the pandemic.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, and the pandemic kind of pushed us to do it because we had restrictions on our space and our team was growing rapidly. We didn't have enough stations for them. So we took the risk and we opened it and that went well. And so at that time I pulled back from working with the summit because I had a family and a growing salon. We bought a beauty school. We have a Summit Salon Academy. I somehow convinced my little brother to run that. And then last year we opened our third location, which has been its own story. And we now have 100 employees. We'll do over $5.5 million this year. And I'm surprised when I say those things. So I'm very proud of my team and just the effort they've put in, especially in the last 5 years. That's been, had a lot of weird challenges to it.
Oh my gosh, the fact you've opened a second salon in 2021 and then a third salon in 2023 is very ambitious. But I love the fourth generation story. I mean, that's pretty cool. I never heard that, and it obviously runs deep in the family, in the blood. Although, like you said, that doesn't convey actual know-how and systems and strategies. It's maybe just more the passion the passion of it all.
That's right.
But anyways, so you've definitely worn so many hats over the years, and you have been exposed to so much. I'm curious to get your perspective on what you've seen and what maybe you continue to see as the biggest issue that salon owners and salon professionals tend to have around pricing in general in our industry. What's the biggest issue you see?
I think there's lots of issues with pricing. There's a lot of challenges with it. We're working on we just implemented some tweaks last week for our team, from the takeoff of online booking to a guest calling and talking to a front desk staff who isn't from behind the chair and maybe doesn't have the experience. A guest goes online and tries to look at multiple salons, and none of the services are called the same thing. None of the prices match up, and it's very confusing from a service or a guest perspective. And then they come into the salon and it puts the service provider in a tough place because they have to be able to explain the why behind the pricing and really convince this guest that this makes sense, and that you want to pay this amount and you totally understand the why behind it, right? It's just like this super open-ended thing that everybody just makes up their own solutions for, and
Yeah.
it makes it really messy for the guest stylist experience. And I think it makes it really challenging.
And I mean, typically the actual salon professional doesn't really understand the justification behind the price in the first place. So how are they supposed to properly communicate it and convey it and convince the customer that it's an appropriate price, right?
I agree. I agree. And you'll see lots of issues around that client experience when they're going to check out, or when they leave the salon and are looking at their bill and they don't know why they were charged what they were charged, right? They don't get it, they don't understand it, which causes, a lack of trust, a lack of faith in what's happening, and increases the chance that they could be, frustrated and maybe not come back.
Yeah, that's actually probably one of the biggest customer frustrations. I hear it from friends and people that I know all the time. Is that's this? It's called the sticker shock, right? They get to the front desk and they're told this is how much your bill is, and it's way more than they expected, and it had not been communicated. And now they're stuck. They've already done the service, and it's like, okay, like I got to pay this, but oh my gosh, that was crazy expensive. I had no idea. And that's a huge frustration. And yeah, big likelihood that they're going to start seriously considering maybe going somewhere else. So we got to get our heads around pricing a lot. And I know that you in your salon companies kind of made a big shift in your pricing strategy several years back. So I want to start to get into that a little bit. And when did you decide that you needed to make a change in the pricing strategy for your salon? And sort of like what was the trigger? What was that like aha moment behind it? And I guess the why, you decided to make a significant change to your pricing strategy.
Yes. Well, for one, this is constant work. So, there has been moments of ahas in trying to make, bigger, changes that have meaning to us so that the staff feel more confident, explaining the why. So, from just a systematic approach, that was our first, real focus. And then pre-COVID, we decided to change our pricing structure to be, like non-gendered pricing. And that, I mean, there's lots of things that went into that, but it from a logistical strategic side, it really fit in with the foundation blocks we were trying to create with pricing. So from our perspective, it's we have an a la carte pricing menu, and that's not necessarily something we put on the website, um, because the guest doesn't know all the pieces. But for the staff, we want to give them building blocks to be able to create to meet the need, right? The guest is asking to have this photo, right, of themselves, and to have us create that, and we want them to have the flexibility to really meet that need very specifically, right? So the pricing makes sense for what they're asking for. It's not just this bucket that we just generally do for everybody. And
Yeah.
so the non-gendered pricing actually made that easier, because we're looking at, our philosophy is we want to charge for product or time or both, right? So there's two considerations when we're building pricing, and it's how much product are we using and how much time is it taking. And what we were finding was we would have a short-haired cut come in, but because it was gendered, they were paying more, even though it was taking less time, right? And
Yeah.
it just started to come up that, like, well, does that make sense? Is that fair? Like, why is this person paying more for something that doesn't take the amount of time? And so as we started to think about that, we had this moment of like, we want to be fair, reasonable, and specific to the guest needs. And gendered pricing was putting people in blocks that was actually not meeting that need, right? So
Makes
now,
sense.
yeah, now we've got, I mean, it does not called this, but we have an hour haircut, a 45-minute haircut, and a 30-minute haircut, right? And so, we call them a barber cut and a haircut and style and a luxury haircut, right? We gave them names, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
got to call it something. And but it's more about the time for haircuts specifically. It's more about the time that it's taking for those services, right? So we don't have a child's haircut. We don't have a women's haircut or a men's haircut, right? We have these buckets that are more about how much time does it take to do your hair. If I have long, luxurious hair, I mean, imagine it would be very beautiful on me, right? And I came into the salon, my needs are different than, this Luke with, a short haircut, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if I'm a guy or a girl or whatever, right? My hair is my hair, and we need to meet that need specifically, which also on the staff side helps them not be resentful. I don't know. I'm sure you've experienced this where a stylist will have a guest, they've been seeing them for a long time, and they become resentful of that person because it's taking more time, right? They
Right.
make more money on this other guest than they do on
Yeah.
this one. And then they feel like, they're giving away their time and why, right? And this has really cleaned that up for the staff and hopefully, made it easier for the guest to understand the why behind, what we're
Yeah.
charging.
Nice. Let's delve into some details here and sort of see how this kind of plays out. So could you just sort of share with us kind of like the three buckets that you have now, which essentially are 30-minute, 45-minute, 60-minute in terms of cuts. But how did how did the price list look before to kind of what it is now, and like how did you change actual dollar amounts? Let's say in the past you probably had like you said a child's cut which was a certain price, a men's cut or a barber cut that was a certain price, and then maybe you just had a women's cut, or I don't know if you had short hair, long hair in the past. But can you share with us as much detail as you remember in terms of like
Yeah.
what the pricing looked like and how you shifted it?
Yeah. We had three cuts. We had a kid's cut, a men's cut, and a women's haircut, right? And that
Okay.
was it. And it just was not flexible enough to, meet the needs of what was happening.
Yeah.
And so now if a guest comes in, a kid comes in for a haircut, right? And their family's like, I want the cheapest haircut possible for this kid, right? So
Right.
they book our short haircut. It's 30 minutes. And they come and they sit down and they're like, I just really want her to have the whole experience and, get a shampoo blow dry and just really feel special. Our staff are now in the position to say, oh man, that is amazing. I would love to give her that experience. That experience takes me 45 minutes. And our 45-minute haircut is whatever it is. You're going to
Yeah.
ask me about pricing, which is fine because I can probably generally do it. I think our haircut and style, which is the middle one, the 45-minute one, starts at $55.
And do you remember? I'm curious to know because you just talked about the kids' haircut usually is like the cheapest. Do you happen to remember what the at least the impact was? If you don't remember the specific numbers, like what was the kids' haircut originally, and now what's the cheapest one, which is your 30-minute
Yeah.
option? Like,
Yeah. And I could pull it up, of course, and give you exact numbers, but they're about $10, difference between each level or
yeah.
each service. And
Like, do you know if
but
it
there
went
was
up?
an impact because before,
Yeah, because
yes,
like the
because
consumer, this is where the question comes down to from the consumer standpoint. Were they coming in and getting their child's haircut done, and now all of a sudden, because of your new pricing model, it's now costing a lot more for their
yes,
child's haircut? Like
yes,
that's
yes,
and
yes.
how much more do you think it would it be increased?
The child's haircut specifically went up quite a bit, like
Yeah.
$20. Yeah, it was
Okay.
significant. Yeah.
Right. So
Um,
we're gonna come back to that a little bit, and the the impact and reaction of
sure.
consumers when making these changes, because that's an important consideration that every salon is going to have. I mean, we know how scared most salon professionals are about taking even like a couple dollar price increase, right? So
Well,
that's
and
always
thank you because I mean we're really honestly very aggressive about our pricing. And we've got multiple ways for our staff to increase their pricing, whether that's an annual price increase, which we do every year. It changes based on what we think the market can withstand, and then they can get promoted and raise their prices on top of, right, what the salon company is doing as a whole, right? So we are trying to be very aggressive. We want to be right at the edge of how much somebody's willing to pay us.
Totally makes sense. And do you remember for like let's say the traditional men's cut versus what's available now? What was there a significant impact when you made the
Yeah,
change?
it was smaller, but it was like a $5 increase.
Okay, so it was still an increase, but less so.
Yeah, and same with the women's haircut transitioning to a haircut and style that went up $5 as well. So we did do a price increase when we implemented this new system.
Okay. And so I could come in to your salon today, and if people, are just listening to this, they don't see, but I have pretty short hair. So I mean, normally, 30 minutes would be, more than enough to do a proper job. But if I wanted to have the full luxury experience, and I want someone to take an hour with me and do the whole, shampoo, basin, and massage, and really, pamper me a little bit, I could ask for that luxury 1 hour cut.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it puts the staff in a position to be able to offer upgrades as well, right? So
Yeah.
do you want our base haircut or do you want our luxury haircut? And they're like, well, what's the difference?
Well,
Well,
what's the luxury haircut?
yeah, exactly. And they can talk about what they'll do in the luxury, and then the
I mean,
guests
I
can
like
decide.
luxury.
Yeah, exactly. Take care of me.
Yeah, I don't want to be the basic. And typically, this is a psychology thing. When you have three options, the most common is that people are going to go towards that second option, because they don't want to be necessarily seen as cheap and going for like the lowest thing,
Right.
and but they can kind of justify to themselves that they're being reasonable by not going for the most expensive thing. So they kind of fall in the middle, which can be an upgrade. This is actually quick sidebar, but I learned this recently. It makes total sense. Is that um, the majority of people, when they're going to a restaurant ordering wine, the number one bottle that's sold the most is the second cheapest bottle. Nobody wants to buy the cheapest bottle on the menu, but they'll go for the second one. And that's typically where the restaurants put their best margin item on that bottle of wine right there. So, quick little insight for those wine drinkers out there.
That's
Okay.
right. Either go for it or get the cheapest one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But nobody wants to be seen as cheap and go for like the
That's right.
cheapest. So they go like just above the cheapest, which is there. Luke, do you remember this whole sort of like gender neutral pricing? When you first made that switch, do you know if there were other salons in your area that were already doing that you were aware of? Or were you the first ones?
There's only one other salon that had done it that I know of that had done it before. I mean, there may have been others. There's obviously more salons than I can keep track of. But out of the people that I really admire, there was
Yeah.
one salon that had done it before, and they did a big, marketing campaign around it and the why behind what they were doing. And so I saw it, right? And we were already having that conversation. And so that was really encouraging, right? To watch that, to see somebody else making that change.
Yeah, and I'd say it's fair to say that it's become more and more common, let's say, in the salon industry. I don't want to call it a trend, but some people might say, "Oh, it's become trendy," to have gender neutral pricing. But it's something that a lot of people are considering. So let's talk a little bit about some of the impacts on the business. And first, the reaction of the staff. Right, pricing, as we've been talking about, is a very sensitive topic in the first place. Many salon professionals are uncomfortable when they are forced to make a change. Right, salon owner comes in and says, "Okay, annual price increase. We're now changing our price." That can cause a lot of discomfort for a lot of service providers. How did you communicate this change internally, right? Because there was sounds like some significant, impacts to pricing going up overall. And, so how did you communicate it? What was the reaction, of the staff, and how did you deal with any issues there?
Yeah. the we spent the most time with the staff around it. And we've got, like I said, we do price increases, right? It's happening in our world every year, and staff may even be increasing their price more because they were promoted. And for us, the philosophy has always been around coaching and mentoring them on how to talk about it, how to be prepared to face resistance from a customer, and to coach them up on how to handle that, right? So this is a very, I learned some of these scripts very early on when I implemented the summit systems, and that coaching has stayed very true. And in our early years, we had a lot of experiences with staff being very afraid of making these changes.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the lived experience of having gone through a successful price increase, and they were terrified. And 17 years later, they are not afraid anymore, right? It's so built into the culture that we we charge more. We earn the right to charge more, and when we've earned that right, and gotten that promotion, that part of that is a price increase, and the scripting and the coaching around that is really strong. So how are you talking about it? What's your response to resistance? And what's your follow through afterwards? And I can tell you those details if you want, but that having that there for them has allowed them to get to the other side and experience that guests are pretty reasonable, right? And you know I learned from Summit a long time ago that when we raise our prices, we can lose a certain percentage of our guests and still make the same amount of money.
Yeah.
And so if we know that that is true, then we can accept that, and we are creating openings in your books to see new guests that don't care what you used to charge, right? Now that you've gotten more experience, you're better at the craft. Not all guests can stay with you for your whole career, and that's okay, right? And so saying, hey, my prices have gone up, your price is going to be this today, how does that sound? We are okay if they're like, I can't do that. We have scripts to handle that, right? Like, I totally understand. Not everybody could do this with me. And the good news is I have an amazing team around me, and I've already got somebody in mind that I think could take really good care of you. And the truth is, when you're in that conversation meaningfully and prepared, right, for that conversation, it allows the guest the space to know that it's okay if they leave. And what we've found is that when they feel like we heard them and that we would make a plan to accommodate them, which doesn't mean I'm going to lower my price for this person. That's not what that means. But we do have a plan to take care of them. They actually tend to stay with the service provider longer through more promotions than they would have if we didn't talk to them about it before the service start and they were surprised by it at the front desk. That is a sure shot way to get that guest to leave the
To lose
salon
a client.
forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're not just going to be frustrated with the individual stylist, they're going to view it as a negative experience of the whole salon. They might write a negative review online about that experience and all sorts of things that you want to avoid. I'm going to reiterate because I think what you've talked about there obviously sounds like it's the key to your success in the salon over the years of managing price increases, with your team is the the diligence in terms of coaching and mentoring the staff around how to have those conversations and to have scripts. And it's not just, okay, here's your script guide, go for it. You incorporate it into, ongoing training and coaching, with them. And I would say that, the majority of salons out there are not doing that. And therefore people are still living in this space of fear, right, around talking about the pricing. And when we live in fear, we end up often avoiding, right, having that conversation. And then that's what ends up happening. The customer shows up at the front desk, they get a big surprise, a negative surprise, and it impacts their, you know, likelihood of returning to see us. So for those that are out there listening, having those coaching conversations with the staff is super important. Now, I'd say where it probably comes back is often the salon owner doesn't necessarily feel comfortable themselves and are not in a position to properly, coach and train and mentor the staff to have these conversations because the owner is not comfortable themselves. And that's where maybe you as an owner, can look internally and say, maybe I need to get some help and some coaching for myself first, so that then I can be a better leader, and help my team through this important topic. So, I just wanted to kind of reiterate some of that. So, would you say, just coming back to the reaction of the staff when you switched to this gender neutral pricing, they were obviously comfortable at knowing how to manage changing in pricing and communicating, increases, whatnot. What was their reaction overall to the concept of what you were doing with this gender neutral pricing?
Yeah, I think it was overwhelmingly positive. And one of my other beliefs that we really lead with is this: it's about the staff, right? We've got to take care of them first and foremost to put them in a position to take care of the guest. And when we looked around our company and the feedback people were giving us, it was obvious that this felt good to them because it cleared up why and how we're charging in a way that's fair and reasonable across the guests that are coming in for them, right? And so there was a lot of energy from them in putting this in place. Like they felt really good about the why, right? That, you know, this is about the hair, not the human. And, like, how much time is this going to take? And that's it, right? That's what this is about. It's easy to explain. It's easy to talk about. I mean, obviously, we talked through how do we talk about the change with the guest? What if a guest says, "Well, that's weird. What do you say?" We needed to prepare them for the few times that somebody may ask why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Um, but it was very positive for them overall. But again, they're more used to us making tweaks and asking them to, make a change to how we're charging to better serve the guests and put them in a better position to communicate clearly.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about your guests then. Like, how did you communicate it to the guests, and what was the general reaction that you got from them?
Yeah, we chose to not really do a campaign around this. We let it happen at the chair if it needed to happen at the chair, and it was surprisingly easy, right? The guests that we're booking, they may have been used to a women's haircut, and we just started using a different vernacular, right? So I'd like a woman's haircut. Awesome, we'll get you booked for a haircut and style, and that's it. I mean, that was our strategy. We'd watched a salon, kind of shout from the rooftops that they were making gender neutral change, that, and they did a really wonderful job talking about that. But the team wasn't bought in that we needed to make this a big deal, that this was just an obvious service that we needed to do for the consumer. And and it went wildly smooth. I mean, I don't really think I can remember a complaint or concern around this, right? The website just changed, online booking just changed, and when they went on to book, they had to figure out which haircut they were going to get, and it was now about the time, not the gender. And it was pretty easy, pretty obvious for them to make that change.
And what about the let's say the child haircut? Because you had mentioned that took a significant
Okay.
increase. Did
Okay.
you have some pushback on something like that?
Absolutely. Yes. You can't double the price of a kid's haircut and not have people respond with that. And that was definitely something we had to prepare people for. And we do, we try not to we try to be reasonable. So, when the service provider said, "Hey, our we're no longer offering kids haircuts because they take 30 minutes. And our 30-minute haircut is, what is it now? It starts at $43, right? And the
Right.
guest was like, that's a really big increase. Thanks for telling us. Let's keep it the same this time because we're not here to, surprise you. And next time it'll be the new price. And that was how we managed it. And you know what? We lost some kids' services, but that was okay for us. That it's not really the clientele that we're focused on. And so, if that was a part of our communication with the staff was we're going to lose some kids' haircuts, right? And that's okay because it's going to open up space for our ideal clients.
Yeah. And I think again, people need to uh, look at the math on some of that. So just what you had alluded to earlier, if you were to increase kids haircut price to this new 30 minute, but the actual dollar price goes up by 50%, let's just say as an example. So you increase the price by 50%. That means your revenue, right, on one cut is increasing by 50%. So you could actually lose 50% of your clients and you'd still end up even, right? So you'd still be making the same amount of money if you lost half your clients, but now to your point, you have a lot more space to bring in new clients, right, for other services or maybe the same services, whatever, that are prepared to pay that higher price, and there's a much bigger upside. So just never forget that the math behind that yeah, when you take a price increase, it's possible that you're going to lose some clientele, but your overall revenue may very well be increasing, right? Um, Based on that, the percentage that you lose. So uh, important to look at the numbers always. Okay, this is interesting. I'm curious to know if you saw, like, what impact did you actually see, if any, on your business, like on the revenues from this change that you made?
Yeah, and it's a little bit harder to track because we definitely saw people moving around, right?
Right.
Somebody
Yeah.
that was being charged more was now being charged correctly inside of this 30-minute service, right? Uh, and so, I don't think I mean, the price increase that we did covered any of those changes. That's why we did a price increase at the same time, was to ensure that there wasn't a negative impact from people being sorted by time instead of by gender, right? So that was, to me, an important piece of the puzzle, was to raise the prices as we did this so that we protected ourselves from any of these changes, and that really helped get the staff buy-in to serve the guest, right? We've made some changes to better suit our customers' needs. Your haircut really only takes me 30 minutes. And so I'm going to actually reduce you to a 30-minute service, unless, of course, you want a luxury service, which would be this new haircut price.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay.
And so during that period we were seeing growth in service sales across all staff, but I would give the credit to the price increase more than to the changing of the services.
Got it. But you probably just, again, were doing more accurate job of charging for the right amount of time so that you weren't potentially losing out on, having a lower cost for a service that was taking a long time. Now you are more consistent with your,
Yes.
with your pricing for the time that the client was there, and able to kind of be more, let's say, productive with the chair
Yes.
space that you had, right? The chair
Yeah.
time. Yes.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why it's kind of hard, because we had enough people moving around from, 30 to 45, 45 to an hour, right? That it got really hard to track the exact impact. But the
Yes.
impact to the staff was that my time is more productive. I understand what I'm producing in my time better because it makes sense on why we're charging this way. So
Well,
the morale around that is really positive, right? That they understand the why, they feel good about the why, and they can see how, to manage their business better.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. But it sounds like you never really used this change in a with a marketing message to sort of promote the fact that you were, you know, gender neutral pricing,
So,
because a lot of did you ever do anything like along that line?
so 2 years ago, we got certified by a nonprofit called the Dress Code Project. And the Dress Code Project is a nonprofit that is talking about the why behind non-gendered pricing.
Yep.
And they've got a couple extra checkoffs that you have to have. Non-gendered pricing is one of those. All user restrooms is another, right? They're working on helping salons be, comfortable and safe places for the LGBTQI community. And so we did get that certification, which we did talk about online, right? But more than that, we then started doing, we do these community events throughout the year
Yep.
that our team is required to be at, and we have to pay them to be there because we want to give back to the community. And we started doing a gender-free haircut day that is specific, like free haircuts on a specific day for the LGBTQI community. And so we started doing this event to support that community in Portland. And that has become, something we care about and are passionate about, that to serve that community. And that has, in an essence become, something we're talking about. We're doing this event. We're talking about that event, trying to encourage people to come to that event. But for the first 3 years, we didn't talk about it at all.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that you have, because I mean, myself, obviously being a marketing, marketing guy, I feel there's anything that you're doing, around your business that's sort of, making a positive change. And this is obviously something that is generally seen positively in, our society today, is, the breakdown of genders, and to be able to sort of showcase that you are, I mean, just the logical aspect of, we're charging based on the time. Like, that just makes sense. Nobody can argue with that.
Yeah.
But the fact that you are sort of making it, and same thing, I encourage people when you're being, doing sustainability practices in your salon. Like, those are things that you should be talking about. Like, let people know, because our society, their values are shifting, and people are becoming more concerned about those things. So you might as well showcase that you support that, so you can connect on the values of various consumers, and it's going to help, be a point of differentiation for your salon company versus others out there when a consumer is making a choice. So definitely happy to hear that you've, been not only certified, I mean, that's very cool, and started to do events in the community. Again, I think that creates a lot of engagement, which is obviously super positive.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I think we missed, we were focused on, does this fit our vision and values? Does it fit how we want to serve our customers? And, we were really focused on that rather than, how to tell the world about it. And when we saw the dress code project start talking about it, we were like, this is something we are proud of and excited about. We should really engage more, right? To your point, and really talk about it, because it it is who we are trying to be. And what the efforts that we're putting in, we need the world to know that, because it will attract clients that fit in with our vision.
Yeah, makes sense. Luke, last question for you. Just kind of like big picture here. If you had one piece of advice that you could share with salon owners and salon professionals, just around pricing in general, how to get their heads around it, how to avoid, the fear of it, what would that one piece of advice be for them?
Well, one, to remember the impact. If we have two stylists graduate beauty school and join our company, and one works within the system, and whether they're afraid or not, uses the scripting, uses the mentoring to go through the price increases, and the other doesn't, even trailing 2 years behind, it will reduce the trailer's income significantly to the tune of $1 million over a 30-year career. And that, to me, is profound. And I don't think people really understand the impact of having, progressing your price point, right? And even if you're afraid, it's something we have to lean into in our industry, or else we're held back and we can't create the life that we've promised ourselves, the people around us, and that's available to us in this amazing industry. And so just to be focused on reality rather than fear can help us take a step that we're afraid of, and to use the people around you that have done it successfully before to be your cheerleader and believe in you more than you might believe in yourself.
Amazing. Well said. Luke, I want to thank you for just being such a great mentor in our industry. You've always been a positive influence. You're obviously a great leader within your organization, and I wish you continued success. And just want to say thanks so much for taking the time with our audience today to share some insights, around your experiences, your business specifics. I know it's greatly appreciated. I just want to say thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, well, and thanks for asking and letting me talk about the things we're passionate about.
Love it. Hope everyone, picked up some gems from today's episode that you can kind of implement and think about a little bit more deeply in terms of, pricing strategy in your own company that may, work better for you. A lot of great insights here, I think, that can go a long way. And obviously, Luke and his companies have had some great success with it. He's not the only one. There's tons of salons that are starting to rethink their pricing, and we just want to challenge you to just rethink, right? Take the time to think about what's right for you. And find that courage to push the boundaries a little bit if that's what it takes, to get yourself to the next level. So take a moment, reflect on this, and remember, today is a great day to be alive. Everyone, go have a great day. We'll see you on our next episode. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to the Salon Scoop podcast. This show is produced by Salon S.O.S, a digital marketing agency by industry professionals for industry professionals. If you want simple and affordable solutions for any of your salon marketing needs, such as websites, client loyalty, Google search rankings, social media, or more, come visit us at salonsos.ca or on Instagram at salon.s.o.s. If you want to hear more episodes like this and help us continue to bring the industry great content, it would mean so much to us if you would support us in one of the following ways. Either share this episode with one other industry professional, and rate the show on Spotify, or write us a quick review on Apple Music. We want to hear your feedback. If you have follow-up questions or ideas for future episodes, please reach out. DM us on Instagram at salonus.s.o.s, or hit us up on our website again at salonsos.ca. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go get your hustle on, keep smiling, and we'll catch you on our next episode.